Okay, let's take a look at the histogram. So, as you guys have seen with Lightroom before this, a histogram will give you a range of what you're seeing in the exposure. For example, this histogram on this image is showing us that the blues are exposing over here more towards the shadows. There aren't a lot of blues in here. So there's just some shadows underneath this chair in the picture. The greens are covering through the midtones, right through there, and then the reds are spiking out towards the highlights. And so this is basically how this is working out. So we have shadows to highlights, and this is how this is reflected, but it's reflected in color. If we look at this image here, it's a different image, and we will notice that the histogram is a lot more different because there's both highlights and greens and shadows and greens and back and forth with the reds, and the blues has some highlights and all the way across because it's a different exposure. There is no such thing as a perfect histogram. It's just the histogram has to reflect what the shot is. Is the shot high key? Is the shot low key? For example, here's a shot at night. The histogram on this one is really on the low side. There are some maybe moving towards the from the shadows to the darks. We have some colors showing up, especially the reds in the sky in this shot. But for the most part, this is where the histogram is. As I'm moving around to different areas in the image, you can see that whatever I'm highlighting on is reflecting what is being covered here. So as I go into here, all the blacks are definitely in the negative exposure area. So if we go back to this image, as I move through here, once again, you guys can see that line going through. Now, you can also go in and click and turn on the exposure warning, which if you had some highlights that were going to be really blown out, such as the chair here, we have a blowout in the highlight on the edge of the chair here, it gives me the warning for the highlight. There is no real warning for the shadows, it's just basically for the highlights, but we also have the ability to go in here to our preferences, which opens up the preferences tab that you would open up from over here in this menu here, and this one being an exposure. And if you want to see the shadow warning, you can turn it on here and it will actually show it in blue. And so if I had a really dark area in this shot, say I pulled down the exposure a lot, if I had an area that was really in the shadows, it would give me a clipping. Let's see here. Let's undo that. Let's do it. Let's pull the shadows down. So if I pull my shadows down and I pull my blacks down, I might get a clipping warning. Yep, it looks like I've got one down in here. So that's basically how that works. So once you get the clipping warning set up to show you both the highlight and the shadow, then you can go back in and take a look in here, and you could change the colors if you'd like. Some people don't like having red and blue. They like other colors, so you could do that. And you can also go in and do what's called picking a target level, which means that you can pick where you want it to actually give you the warning versus where it actually will give you the warning. And that way sometimes you can prep the images better for printing purposes where you may not have as much gamut when you print, and so you want to make sure that you kind of keep your colors inside of the gamut. So that would be the way to do that. So that's basically how this works. Right now the auto clipping thresholds are at 0.10% and well, it's 0.1% and 0.1%. So that's how that works. So that's the histogram, just understanding just how to use it.